So we just had Apple's Far Out event, and at that event we saw the brand new iPhone 14 models, and one model that was brand new to the lineup was the new iPhone 14 Plus. However, a lot of you are wondering, is it worth buying the iPhone 14 Plus, or is it worth buying last year's iPhone 13 Pro Max? Well, today I'm going to be doing a comparison for you, doing the iPhone 13 Pro Max versus the iPhone 14 review of specs, and letting you know what iPhone is probably worth buying for you in 2022. And just in case you're wondering, if you want to do a comparison of the iPhone 13 Pro Max versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max, do check out my video, what's going to be up in the top corner right here. Well, without further ado, let's do a review of the iPhone 14 Plus versus the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So here we have it then, we've got the iPhone 13 Pro Max on the left side and we have the iPhone 14 Plus on the right side. What I'm going to do then for this comparison, I'm going to call it the iPhone 13 PM and the iPhone 14P for the Plus. So let's get started. So starting with the display type, both of these iPhones have an OLED display. However, what I will say is that the iPhone 14 Plus does have a slightly brighter display than the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but there's not much in it at all. It's very, very similar kind of technologies in both of these displays, in their kind of sort of how they're made, are OLED displays, and also at the same time as well, their brightness with them. The actual screen sizes though as well are exactly the same. Because they both share the same kind of body, they're both 6.7 inches, so there's no difference here in the actual screen size what you're going to get. Then the actual screen resolution, they're both 16 by 9 and they've got a resolution of 2278 by 1284, and this is for both the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Plus. And also, as you may have noticed at the top, you do have that notch, and the notch is exactly the same on both of these models. For pixels per inch, what that basically means with that screen resolution, it's 458 pixels per inch, or PPI, what is basically the standard across the board that we've had since the iPhone 12. The display refresh rate though, this is where things change. With the iPhone 13 Pro Max, we got introduced to that brand new ProMotion display, what allows the screen to go all the way down to 10 Hz and go all the way up to a refresh rate of 120 Hz, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus still only has a 60 Hz refresh rate, what to some people is a little bit disappointing. We also have the display protection. It's identical on both of these models. It is a ceramic shield, what's very similar to kind of sort of the Gorilla sort of glass, what's out there right now. We've also got the processor, the CPU, and both of these phones have the identical chipset inside it. So they're both A15 Bionics, and this basically means that they have 4 efficiency cores, 2 performance core and a 5-core GPU, and they're both built on a 5nm die, the A15 chipset. So it's identical chipsets in both of these phones. Moving on though for RAM, again it's exactly the same. They both have got 6GB of RAM now, and it's LPDDR4X type of RAM. We do have LPDDR5 RAM, what's in the new 14 Pro models, but both of these phones have the same type of speed of RAM inside them. So with storage next, there is a bit of a difference here. If you do opt to get yourself an iPhone 13 Pro Max, you could go from 128GB all the way up to 1TB, and the 1TB option became available to the Pro iPhones last year in 2021. However, with the iPhone 14 Plus, you only have the option of 128GB, 256GB and 512GB storage. You cannot get a 1TB option for this iPhone. For expansional storage, there is none, and this is quite the same for iPhone since day one. Operating system wise, both of these iPhones can run Apple iOS 16. However, there is a bit of a difference with the iPhone 14 Plus. The iPhone 14 Plus, for example, has the ability of crash detection built into it using the hardware inside, whereas the iPhone 13 Pro Max doesn't have this. And also at the same time as well is that the iPhone 14 Plus has the ability to do that kind of satellite sort of emergency SOS ability. If you do get lost in the middle of the wilderness, you can use that, and obviously that comes free for 2 years on the iPhone 14 Plus, but then you do have to pay for it afterwards, whereas the iPhone 13 Pro Max does not have that ability whatsoever built in. For battery sizes, they are very similar, and I will say that, and really do take note of this, that the iPhone 13 Pro Max does have a 4,352 milliamp battery, and the iPhone 14 Plus has a 4,325 milliamp battery. What is technically 0.5% smaller, but what you've got to remember is the iPhone 13 Pro Max does actually have some extra sort of abilities inside it. It does have that extra lens, it's got the LiDAR sensors, and there's probably one or two other little bits and pieces going around in hardware what could actually drain the battery a tiny bit more. So really the battery life on both of these iPhones should really be about neck and neck. There's really going to be no difference. So don't worry about that 0.5%. And even if that 0.5% was actually the main difference between these iPhones, it basically essentially means that if you had an iPhone 13 Pro Max and it lasted 10 hours, the iPhone 14 Plus would probably last 9 hours 58 minutes. So you can see there's nothing in it at all. Moving on then to wired and wireless charging. The wired charging and the wireless charging hasn't changed since the iPhone 12 model, so it's exactly the same here. We've got Lightning at 20 watts, and we've also got the wireless MagSafe at 15 watts for both of these models. Weight, there is some changes. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, obviously with that extra lens and sensor, LiDAR sensor, and one or two other little bits and pieces, does weigh a little bit more heavier at 240 grams, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus weighs in at 203 grams, so almost 200 grams. So it is quite a bit lighter than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. For water resistance, both of these iPhones have got exactly the same in them. They're IP68, and this basically means that you could drop your phone into clear water up to 6 meters, up to 30 minutes before sort of any damage starts happening to these iPhones. But it's up to you if you want to try that out. Then after that, we've actually got the ports. Both of these phones have Lightning ports, and it does look like that the iPhone 14 series is going to be the last one to get a Lightning port, and USB-C is coming next year, but that's a story for another day. But for other ports, there isn't really any. There is no headphone port either. And also, I must also mention that the iPhone 14 Plus, if you are in the USA, you will also get no physical SIM. It will actually be a eSIM, whereas everybody in the Wales, you will still get that SIM card sort of slot. Then after that, we've got stereo speakers, and both of these iPhones have got this, and there's really no difference in the speakers in both of these models. Then we've got 5G capability. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has the original 5G modem that came with the iPhone 12. However, the iPhone 14 Plus has a brand new 10 gigabit modem inside it. But obviously the cellular towers have to be compatible, and you've also got to have good enough signal to make this work and take full advantage of this in the iPhone 14 Plus. For Bluetooth, it is very similar. However, iPhone 14 Plus does have a slightly better Bluetooth inside it, and that is Bluetooth 5.3, only some slight enhancements, whereas the iPhone 13 Pro Max actually has Bluetooth 5.0. For rear cameras, and this is where the big sort of change in looks wise, where you can see it is that obviously the iPhone 13 Pro Max does have a triple camera lens setup, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus only has a double lens setup. So with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, we get a 12 megapixel wide, ultra wide, and also 12 megapixel telephoto, and you can record up to 4K, and you also get that LiDAR sensor too for doing kind of more portrait kind of photos and also video recording. Whereas the iPhone 14 Plus only has a 12 megapixel wide and 12 megapixel ultra wide, but it must be said at this stage that that wide and ultra wide is probably on par or maybe even slightly better, especially in low light, than what the iPhone 13 Pro Max offer in its wide and ultra wide lens. But you do get that benefit of that telephoto in the iPhone 13 Pro Max. For rear camera features, there are some differences as well. Both of these phones do have quad tone. However, for example, the iPhone 13 Pro Max can go up to a 15 times digital zoom, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus can only do a 5 times digital zoom. And also as well, you've got the 3 times optical zoom because you've got that extra telephoto lens, but you do have other things like night mode, deep fusion, smart HDR3, but then at the same time for the Pro model, you do actually get Pro RAW, Pro Res, because this is for a Pro model, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max rightfully so should get this. Both these phones do have cinematic, but the new iPhone 14 Plus does have 30 frames per second cinematic mode. Moving on to the front camera, the selfie camera, it is a single lens setup, and on the iPhone 13 Pro Max we have a 12 megapixel and it can record up to 4K, and the iPhone 14 Plus also has a 12 megapixel, but the aperture is a bit more better and it can record up to 4K, and mainly the big advantage is it also has autofocus built in. So actually I would say the iPhone 14 Plus does win here with actually having a better single lens on the front of its phone. The price wise though, the iPhone 13 Pro Max officially is not being sold by Apple anymore. However, lots of other retailers out there are still selling it. And when it did come out, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it did cost $1,099, but because it's been a year now and you can get the iPhone 13 Pro Max at lots of different places, you can actually pick this up quite a lot cheaper and you can actually get some good deals out there for the base model at 128 gigabytes. Whereas the iPhone 14 Plus right now on Apple's website, it's available at $899, and that will also give you the 128 gigabyte model. For colours wise, the iPhone 13 Pro Max offers silver, graphite, gold and Sierra blue, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus offers 5 colours of midnight, starlight, product red, blue and also that new purple. So with that in mind, what iPhone model will you be buying? So as we can see, the iPhone 14 Plus is a great iPhone. Yes, it does have that car crash detection built into it, and also it does have that satellite connectivity as well as an extra feature. But to be deadly honest, with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you do get that extra sort of telephoto lens, you're getting the same chipset, and overall the design is exactly the same, and you're also getting ProMotion too. In my honest personal opinion, I would rather choose getting an iPhone 13 Pro Max, especially if the price was to say about $100 more than say an iPhone 14 Plus if you could get it at a sale price. And the great thing is there's lots of places like Amazon and eBay and other places out there in the world right now where you could pick up an iPhone 13 Pro Max at a really good deal. But that is my own opinion. What are your thoughts? Would you choose an iPhone 13 Pro Max over an iPhone 14 Plus? I would love to know in the comments below. And on that note too guys, it's time to wrap up this video. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button, and at the same time you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews and comparisons like this one, please make sure you subscribe to this channel and also hit that notification bell. Until next time guys, I will see you really soon. Bye bye.